call, please.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Here.
Mr. Blue?
Here.
Mr. Householder?
Here.
Mr. McCullough?
Here.
All right, if you'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval and/or correction of the minutes of the regular meeting of August 21st, 2017. Motion?
McCullough.
Second?
Watkins.
Discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
All right, and now we have several principal or faculty reports, and we're going to start with Ms. Cole Needles with curriculum.
Just to set Jody up a little bit, what we've done is we've taken our strategic plan and we had an action plan attached to it for the district last year. And so this summer, the principals and the administrative team worked together to create action plans for their buildings that align with the district plan. So we're just showing more accountability, and we're showing how we track our goals and how we set our goals.
Okay, good evening. I have the honor and the pleasure of beginning the presentations tonight, hopefully to highlight a few of the common themes that you're going to see between the district and the building goals. Okay. My first task is to explain a little bit about goal number one, which is the academic goal of our strategic plan. Goal number one is to improve core instruction. And to give you a little bit of context about what we mean when we talk about core instruction, I'll talk a little bit about terminology here in this chart. Last year, the district leadership team spent a lot of time working on developing a multi-tiered systems of support framework for instruction. And the multi-tiered systems of support, as you can see from this graphic, has 3 tiers of instruction. And the tier on the bottom is called core instruction. That's in the green there. That's the instruction that all of the students receive during their instructional time in the content area. And the goal of Tier 1 core instruction is to reach 80% proficiency for all students. So, in other words, all students will be successful at achieving proficiency in core instruction, at the core instructional level. And then the yellow tier, Tier 2, is what's called targeted intervention, and that would be just for some students, a small group of students who didn't meet proficient at that core instructional level. They would go into a targeted intervention. And then Tier 3 is more intensive intervention, and that would be for really no more than 5% of your student population should be in Tier 3, very intense intervention. And through the process of developing this multi-tiered systems of support, we discovered that we had a lot more than 20% of our students who needed intervention at the Tier 2 and Tier 3 levels. So that really told us that we needed to strengthen our Tier 1 core instruction. So we spent a lot of time talking about what exactly is core instruction? What does that mean? What's it look like? And what do we need to be effective in core instruction? So the next slide sort of defines what we have finally come to consensus on in Kenton City Schools, these 3 very critical components that we need for core instruction to be very effective. And you can see there that we have come up with ongoing formative and summative assessments that are linked to Ohio's learning standards and that are used to guide instruction. And that sort of links assessments, standards, and instruction. So that's a critical element. Effective lesson planning that proactively addresses the learning needs of all students, and that highlighted there is all of our students. And then finally, the use of evidence-based instructional strategies. So tonight, you should hear in the building presentations, you should hear a focus on core instruction and how each building is going to address these 3 critical areas to improve core instruction. So that's kind of a common theme that's going to come out of tonight, because we believe if we have all 3 of these things, we're going to have at least 80% of our students, reaching proficiency through core instruction. The next goal that I'm working on in the curriculum department is the curriculum instruction and assessment guide. And I think most of you all have copies of this or received copies of this. And it will be eventually posted on the webpage. Ryan Collins has kind of set me up with a curriculum page, and I'm working on getting all of the components on that, so this can be posted on there. Last year, I developed this, and it's really divided into 3 sections: curriculum, instruction, and assessment. And in it right now contains all of the curricular resources that Kenton City Schools has adopted at each grade level and content area. It also contains a listing of all of the assessments that we give in the district, the purpose of those assessments, and each reporting period, who that information gets reported out to. The missing piece right now is the instruction piece. So my goal is to include in this guide this year all of those instructional strategies from that 3rd bullet that we talk about that are effective, research-based, evidence-based instructional strategies for teachers to use as an instructional toolbox. And those will go in here, and we'll all be speaking the same language and pulling from the same research-based and evidence-based strategies. So that's going to be updated, and everybody will have access to that. Finally, and I'm really excited about this, we have some improvements coming to our gifted program. Some of these improvements are coming from new regulations provided by the Ohio Department of Education, and those are additional whole grade testing. So ODE now says you have to do whole grade testing at 2 grade levels, and currently we've done that at 2nd grade, and this year we'll be testing at 5th grade as well. So we will be doing whole grade testing at those 2 grade levels in order to hopefully make sure that we are identifying all of the students in our district who would qualify for gifted services. The second component, we will be providing some pretty targeted professional development for all of the teachers who are serving our gifted kids. They're going to get 30 hours of gifted training, gifted services training this year, and then an additional 30 hours next year. And that's going to be sort of a blended model. They'll get some of that online, they'll get some of it in person, and then some of it will be things that they will just implement in their classroom with those gifted students that they serve. And then finally, we're doing a pilot, a co-teaching model pilot in 4th grade. We have a teacher that went through training over the summer, very intensive training to be a gifted intervention specialist. And that helps us immensely because that's a service code that gives us a lot more points and credit for serving our gifted kids. So she's going to be working with a couple of the 4th grade teachers in a co-teaching situation where she's actually in those classrooms, those 4th grade classrooms, with the teacher developing enrichment lessons for those 4th grade students. She's also going to continue to work with the other students in the building in sort of like the tag program that we've done in the past, but she will be intensively working with our 4th grade students, and hopefully that works out, and we're going to be evaluating that through multiple measures to look at the success of that program, and hopefully we're able to better serve those gifted students. And that is the end of my presentation.
It says a pilot program, so is it intended to, if it develop it, to spread it to other
That's
levels?
the goal,
Is that the idea?
yes. That would, however, include hiring additional gifted intervention specialists so that they could serve those kids in that capacity. Yeah.
And so what do you see as the biggest obstacle to making this happen?
The overall plan or
the overall.
Okay, the overall plan. I think because we're at a pivotal point here with our core instruction. So if we can keep everybody on the same page, speaking the same language, and focused on really improving and making sure that our instruction has all three of those critical components, I think we're going to be successful. So I guess as far as a challenge, it would just be maintaining that focus, providing teachers with all of the resources that they need to make those things happen, and maintaining the momentum of really improving core instruction.
Are there any things that the board or the community can do that would help minimize that obstruction, make sure that that happens?
Right now, I think it's just a matter of just being patient, and we know that we have a huge task ahead of us, and we want to stay focused and targeted on that. So it's going to take some time. I hate to always say that we need time because we want to move at a pace that's reasonable, but we have a lot of things in place, and I really think that this is going to be impactful. And we always look for parent support and community support. So I guess from that perspective, parents getting involved in their child's education and volunteering and asking questions and making sure that education is a priority at home as well as at school.
Excellent.
And I just want to say thank you. Just for everybody in the room, realize Jody took over this position January 1 of last year. And the work and the dedication that she has done and given to not only our administrative team, but to our teachers is unbelievable. For her to put that curriculum and instruction guide together for us for the start of the year was amazing. If you were part of the Ron Clark opening day, Jody was responsible for making that happen. This was the first year that I can ever remember that teachers started having all their PD done and all of their resources, all of their curriculum on day one. Teachers walked in on day one not waiting for anything. And so I personally want to thank you. And I know that the other administrators in this room feel exactly like I do, and we're excited to see what you can do for us in the future.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jody.
I have a lot of support and a lot of help, so that helps.
Thank you very much.
Yep,
Appreciate
thank you.
it. Okay, and that brings us to the elementary plan with Ms. Butterman and Ms. Bain.
Good evening. This is a picture of our beautiful building. The only thing missing from this picture is our new little leadership starts here, which is part of our Leader in Me initiative. But Brad Blue took this picture, and we like to show it off. Upside down. So you will, I believe, hear a lot of the same things, like Jody said, because I really feel more than ever, and am thankful also for the work Jody's put in, that we're very much on the same page as a district. So in our building, along the lines of that high-quality core instruction, we are working towards improving the Tier 1 instruction. So one of the main ways that we're doing that, since we are such a large building, we do have the luxury of having several teachers on a team. So our team leads, which would be each grade level has a team lead, our special areas have a team lead, have been trained in the 5-step process. And that's a way to actually look at the data and decide where are our weaknesses and what do we need to do to improve upon those weaknesses so that we can see our students show those growth, show that growth. So along the same lines of our multi-tiered system of supports, like that triangle that Jody showed in hers, we have implemented our, and really excited about, our innovative schedule that includes the Tier 2 intervention as a continuation of our day. So what we do is we target students needing that intervention to stay while the other students go home. And then at the end of our school day, we have our interest-based clubs, which we call Club Roar, and that we have the students involved in that to, again, create those relationships and further get them involved in our instructional day.
Also, improving our core instruction. We are implementing 2 new curriculums, Wonders and Everyday Math. And so serving our students with disabilities, it is important for them to receive that Tier 1 instruction with their peers. And so our district has adopted a co-teaching model, which is very similar to how what Jody shared with you with the gifted model. It's an intervention specialist and a general education teacher that work together and plan to serve all of the students in the classroom. The district goal number 4, our comprehensive system of support, is our Leader in Me initiative, and we're in our 2nd year of being a Leader in Me school. And it's really about empowering the staff and the students to become leaders in our building. And so we do invite you to come out and see our pods again. We had our pod challenges, and the display cases are beautiful. C-Pod won this year. But everyone did a fantastic job on showing their leadership.
Without getting in too much trouble, C-Pod won again. Intentional relationships. They were all fantastic, though. They really were. It's the kids that sold it. You guys know if you came and saw it last year. Our staff lighthouse team is really exciting. The thing about Leader in Me that has been huge for us is that it empowers the leaders in our building. And that is not just the administration. Our building's full of leaders, from the very smallest preschoolers all the way up through the teachers. And the teachers have been fantastic about taking control of these 9 adult action teams. And each of the action teams revolves around leadership, school culture, and academics in our building. And we just added the academic piece, so we're excited about getting into that goal-orientated piece. Then the next thing we will do, get the students more involved by creating a student leadership team. Last year we had a student advisory team, and they were really excited about making decisions in our building. And so now we'll take that a little bit further, and I think we probably need student action teams or student lighthouse teams in every pod, because there will be that many kids excited about it. So then what professional development do we have to go along with that? As Mrs. Spinzarski said, we had a lot of this already ready to go, which takes huge pressure off of us, I must say. But in the Leader in Me process, we worked really on leadership and culture in our first year. And now we will move on to the aligning academics piece. We're going to start kind of low and slow with a building-wide goal. And actually, we look at pre-K 2 just a little bit different than 3-6, because we move from the skill-based to the content. So it's very closely aligned, but specific to the grade level. And we'll have all the students decide a personal goal. And I think that's going to be really exciting for the parents when they come in and meet with their child for conferences to see what they come up with on their own. And then PD Plus, again, we had last year, especially in grades 3 through 6 with our standards-based grading, which K2 did before that. And they will really focus on those student-led conferences this year as well. So that just leads us to the forecast for KES. It's sunny with 100% chance of leadership. Thank you. Questions?
You know, you're a couple weeks in, and how do you view things so far? It's hard to decide at this point, or?
It's fantastic. The best ever.
Got off to a good start.
We see staff smiling. We see kids smiling. It's a great culture.
Yeah, super.
You need to come in and see it.
Yeah.
And the team of 4, and actually technically 4 plus 1 at the elementary, they redesigned their whole schedule last year because they wanted to focus on academics, eliminating all the downtime and looking at how groups worked and how their cafeteria and their recess worked, how downtime functioned. And I have gotten compliments from teachers. So when a teacher walks up to me and says, "Thank you for letting our administration readjust these things," that's a big deal. So I know that things are going very well.
It's great to hear.
I'll ask the same question that I asked Jody. And so what obstacles do you see in this being successful, and how can we help, or the community help, or the board help in making it successful?
Well, Jody kind of took the words out of our mouth, kind of the same kind of thing. We are adding resources. We aren't giving teachers a scripted way. I kind of told teachers today, I was like, we didn't give you a box of supplies and expect it to open up and start teaching for you. Our teachers are our leaders, they're our experts, and we expect them to deliver the instruction to the students. But these resources take a little bit of time to understand exactly what all is involved and how we can utilize them best. In fact, we're having PD this week. So the same kind of thing, just be patient with us as we continue along that, as far as like getting that out to parents, like what pieces can you use with your child at home. And like we have the Connect Ed with Everyday Math. We're just now making sure every single parent knows you can get on and look at that math homework at home. So it's a great resource. So those kind of things.
Another thing with our Leader in Me, we welcome any community members to be a part. We've actually invited our PTO officers to participate in our 7 Habits training coming up, and a couple of them spoke with me this morning, and I think they are going to participate with our new staff who will be going through that. So we're excited about that.
And I think another cool piece when we talk about engaging community and Leader in Me, because that's huge, was just so that you're aware, Regina Comstock, our new cafeteria supervisor, had a background in Leader in Me. So for the first time, our food service is engaged in the Leader in Me work and can speak the same vocabulary and language. And so for me, I'm excited to see how that expands and what they're able to do and how they're able to support the work.
Great.
Yeah, we've given some leadership to a few students, and they're running with it. In fact, they're exhausting us, but it's great.
Serious.
They're on it.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the middle school with Mr. Cameron.
Good evening. I went more with a talking point presentation here, so I'll have to man the remote here, I don't believe, maybe once. This year we've kicked off a new year at KMS and have kind of tried to tweak some things and improve in areas where we've been struggling. First one that I want to talk about tonight is intentional relationships. You know, people say I act like a middle schooler, but it really is a difficult, enough of the snickering. It's a difficult time of life. So building bridges with kids when they're going through a bunch of changes and the curriculum's harder, it's a difficult time of life. So we really work hard to build those bridges with kids, and they're very formative at that period in their life also. So trying to guide them so that towards success for life is a huge thing that we work on. One thing we're continuing with this year is the student advisory panels, kind of giving them some input and say, and a seat at the table, you might say. We're also starting up some leadership lunches. We had a couple of these last year. I know Jacqueline Fitzgerald and John Cross came in from the chamber and had lunch with our kids one time last year. We want to kind of build on that this year. I believe this Friday our young professionals from the chamber are going to come in and have lunch with some of our students. It's just kind of neat seeing, and that's actually Miss Parsley, our social worker, is going gung-ho with that and trying to put all this in place and bringing students into leadership. And it's neat to kind of see kids step up and kind of hit the ground running and working with some of this stuff. Similar to what you've heard from some presentations before me, we're focusing on Tier 1 instruction. Last year, as the KMS team moved through the DLT meeting and kind of assessed what we were doing and what our instruction looked like, we were on that upside down pyramid, if you go back to that graphic that Jody had. So we really want to focus on the standards and the research-based instruction. Standards are you're teaching what you're supposed to teach, and instruction, research-based instruction is, hey, this is what works and we have evidence to prove that. I can't emphasize how important that is. If you don't have those, you're going to be kind of wandering in the desert. So as all other teachers in the district, our teachers are going to be working through our PD Plus courses. This first semester, they're going to be looking at differentiation in the classroom, and the second semester, they're going to be looking at a strategy that is of interest to them, so kind of giving them some say in their learning and professional development. We're also implementing and going at the TBT process, and we're going to make it stick. We've struggled with this for a few years, but this year we had some training here before school year started. Our team leads have been working really hard on it. Our teams are doing well with it. A little bit behind where we thought we'd be, but we're moving towards the goal and making great strides further than we ever have before. And that TBT time is during the team planning time, 1 day a week. One thing that we changed this year is guided study, and a little bit of a change to our intervention model. At the DLT meetings last year, when we were looking at what services students receive, we had this epiphany that our students with disabilities that are served in resource rooms didn't really have a true intervention time to be working with a teacher and kind of solidifying and working through some of those areas where they're struggling with in the past. It might be as simple as adding and subtracting fractions, or picking the theme out of a story. So what we did this year is switch some planning times around with our intervention specialist and gave them a time during the day that they can meet with the majority of the students with disabilities and other students that struggle, and kind of work with them, roll their sleeves up, and dive into areas where those students struggle, and try and bring those skills up so they're easier. It's easier for them to get more on grade level. So really interested to see how that goes. So far, so good when it comes to the guided study. The last point here is one that I've tried to move a little bit faster and push the cart, but people are kind of, even Ms. Penzarski is like, well, I was going to do a book study next year. So I'm really excited to kind of pick up the torch from what the elementary is implementing with the Leader in Me program. A couple years ago, Ms. Butterman and I went to a conference with a number of administrators, and I really like what it's built on, the foundation of it. So I told her, I said, you get rolling with it and I will carry the torch. So we're doing a book study as a staff this year, and next year we're going to move into a little bit deeper. One other thing with the Leader in Me, even though we're not officially pushing it out with the students, we have implemented a 9 weeks mini course, I guess you'd want to say, that is taught by our social worker. And it covers a lot of stuff like study habits and kind of collecting yourself, but it's all kind of rooted in the Leader in Me framework. So kind of just trying to set those kids up, and those 7th graders that will be 8th graders next year, they'll be seeing more of it then. So are there any questions?
I will have the same question for you. I'm going to ask this question all night because we need to know where the obstacles are and how, as a community, we can overcome the obstacles so that our kids get educated.
I thought that might be coming from you, so I have an answer prepared. And not to sound like a broken record from the presentations in front of me, but I think time is one of our more valuable resources right now, because I look at it as we're trying to bake an excellent batch of cookies, find the best recipe. And I think Kansas City Schools, top to bottom, has a pretty strong staff. We're getting more of a focus on curriculum and instruction. We have a lot of the ingredients. We're just trying to find the recipe that gives us that knock it out of the park product. And I think something that frustrates me when we look at a lot of the measurements that are coming from the top down outside of the district. Yeah, we're trying to bake our recipe and find that magic dosage of each that makes it work. And you look at other districts that are similar population, similar size, and they found their recipe, and we haven't found our recipe. And it takes time to do different batches and a little bit of more of this and a pinch of this and whatever, and see what the product is, and then make decisions from there. Hey, where do we have to go to keep improving our recipe? So I think time is the most valuable thing, and just keep working on what we know works, what are the best ingredients for a batch of cookies, and finding those in the right proportions to make our recipe work.
And I'm going to piggyback on a financial need for the middle school that we'll have to consider as a board in the future. And the reason that I tried to get Kirk to slow down a little bit was because I didn't have the funding to do the book study this year. So the Leader in Me is about $60,000 to $70,000 a year, and this board committed to a 3-year implementation plan for KMS, and we had grant money to put with it. The problem we have to think about is these kids now have been exposed for 3 years and they're going to Kirk's building. So how are we going to fund Leader in Me in Kirk's building and thinking ahead to Chad? So we have to start thinking, and I just haven't found the right grant yet, but we'll have to be planning financially. If we support and believe in this, how are we going to continue? And the only other thing that I wanted to piggyback off what Kirk talked about, and Robin said it as well, just so that you understand what PD Plus is. PD Plus is our straight A grant we got last year. And what it is, it's online, personalized professional development, that's the PD part, for teachers. So the people that you're looking at in this room are designing those courses for their teachers, and their teachers get Ashland University credit if they complete so many modules for free. So we're also trying to get our teachers the renewal and certification they need with a very structured professional development that aligns to our core instruction and everything we're doing. So when you hear the principals say PD Plus, think of it as teacher professional development that was through our 6-year straight A grant.
That's specific to Kenton City Schools.
Only, yeah, specific to Kenton City Schools.
All right, any other questions for Kirk?
Thank you,
Sir.
Next is
All right,
Chad.
and that brings us Mr. Thrush.
All right. Well, as I get started, I wanted to begin by just giving you a snapshot of what I'm about as far as the principal of Kenton High School, because I think that's important. I haven't done one of these presentations before, so I thought I'd better start with me. I really believe that I'm a leader of leaders. In other words, I am not the leader. If that happens, we're in trouble. We need a building full of people that can make decisions and lead on their own. Most of our staff at the high school have master's degrees. So it would be silly of me to think that I have to come up with all the ideas and take care of all of the decisions in the high school building. And so there's also, I believe, a great thing that comes with giving some power and some authority to others that allows them to lead. And we've seen some good things happening at Kenton High School because of that. I do truly assess myself based on them. If I'm getting credit and they are not doing well, then something's wrong. It's only when they are performing well and ultimately our students are performing well that I should feel good about where I'm at. I do, and I always will be, centered on relationships with kids. I believe in that from the moment I started teaching. That's part of why I'm here. I do believe that it makes a huge difference in the lives of kids when you take time and invest into them, not just the content. So you'll notice up here it says, know the kids better than you know the content. To me, that's where the real magic happens. And so I preach that, and I'll always be about that anywhere I go. And then the last part is I like to encourage our building, our students, our teachers to feel as if we're part of a family, because I really believe we are. That's one of the great parts about being in Kenton City Schools. It's a smaller school. Even though it says city schools, it's a smaller school. My daughter started here, I think, in 3rd grade. She's now a sophomore. I've seen her go through with all these kids year after year, grade after grade. And so you can get that sense. Now, with the family, and I put this on here, you know, the good news is we're family and the bad news is we're family, because there are some family members you're very proud of and there's others, well, you'd rather that other people didn't know about, but they're a part of your family. So it's one of those where, you know, just because you say we're family doesn't mean it's all good and everything's wonderful. It's just that you're going to protect each other, you're going to stand up for each other, you're going to look out for each other. And so that's kind of my philosophy and how I tend to try to lead. This year, I'm really excited about this. I told my teachers and I told the students that you're going to get probably tired of the word success because we're going to use it a lot. we have started what we're calling the Success Initiative, which just means that we're going to really overwhelm kids with support. And I'll go through this and you'll see by the time I get to the end that, yeah, that does make sense. And why weren't we doing this before? So student success team, those are also sometimes called grade band teams, but where the teachers will get together and talk about who are the students that need help and how do they need help. The cool part about having time for their teachers to do that is when they're in isolation, they're trying to figure that out all by themselves. And they try things that don't work, especially with struggling kids. And when it doesn't work, usually it goes pretty bad. They can avoid all of that sometimes when they're working in teams and somebody says, hey, I made a connection with the kid because I found out he likes to race dirt bikes. Really? Okay. The next thing you know, you pick up that same conversation with a kid about fixing up his dirt bike and you're in. And I know that sounds superficial, but it works. When those conversations can take place and the teachers can help each other figure out how best to reach that kid, good things happen. So just having the time to get them on track. And then we've asked each of our teachers to take on 2 students throughout the year, 1 each semester, as an advocate for that kid. So they're really going to press into that kid a little bit and make sure that they're going to be successful. And we are talking again about the kids who struggle the most. So we're not talking about the kids on the fringes. These are the kids that really struggle, and we believe it's important to have somebody in their corner, even if it's a teacher, and that's what we're shooting for there. The success list. Now, I'm going to be honest. Last year we called this the lockdown list. Okay, it started out as we can't have kids playing, on their computers or taking a nap during study hall if they got D's and F's in class. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to start a list. What are we going to call the list? Well, we also don't want them going and socializing in different places of the building and whatnot, so we got to lock them down. We got to get them down into study hall, and we got to, make sure that they're doing the academic work. The problem was that was purely punishment. In other words, how are we really helping the kid? Well, what we decided was we're going to make sure that from now on we've got help with those kids. So we've moved study halls to the cafeteria. That allowed us to free up additional staff. Now if a student has D's or F's, they're on the success list because the object is to get them successful and get them off that list. So as soon as they take attendance, those kids move down to one side of the cafeteria, and there isn't a ton of them, but there's enough there that the teachers that are success coaches, again, the word success coming back and forth, but they are going to be working with those kids on an individual basis looking at what are your missing assignments. As a matter of fact, they have kind of a mantra what they're going to go through. Who do you owe? And when you say, oh, it's homework assignments, whatever that is, the test that needs made up, who do you owe? What do you owe? How can I help? And what do you need? And just over and over again with those kids so that they're going to finally get to the point where they're going to go, okay, I'll do it. Just, because we all know apathetic students or apathetic adults, what they really want is just to be left alone. So we're not going to leave them alone until those things are done, and they're going to want to get off that list. But we're going to, again, overwhelm them with support to get it done. So it's not going to be one of those we're going to look to punish you. I'm going to go ahead and answer a question I know I'm getting at the end now, which is, what are your obstacles? Well, one of the big obstacles is terminology, and it's something new. So when we first call home, and when we're going to have the parents do this, call home every time you put the kid on the list, there's going to be that tendency to want to make that phone call. And Johnny's just not doing his assignments, and and that's going to be negative. We've got to figure out a way as a staff to make sure we're telling the parents, we believe in your kid. We believe in their success, and we know they can be successful, so we're going to work with them by doing this. Our obstacle is going to be making sure we're communicating that the right way so that we get the buy-in from the parents, from the students, everybody in our community. And so that is something that I'm going to ask from the community, so I'm on TV, that you be patient with us, but at the same time, ask critical questions, call the office, do what you need to do, because we need you to help us support your kid, and we know you will, but that's going to be the obstacle that we need to fight through, which is to gain that support from parents, from our teachers, and also from the students. So that'll be our biggest obstacle, and I'll talk about how you might be able to help us with that. So the success list is updated every 2 weeks, so it's not like they're on there forever. They're on there only for 2 weeks. If they can get themselves off of there, then they're off, but that's how long it lasts. Teachers are going to be contacting parents, so parents are probably going to get more phone calls than they're used to this year, but they're all going to be positive phone calls of, we're trying to help your kid. This is all the ways we're going to help your kid. So we're hoping that that's going to go very positive. And I already know it has gone positively. We've already had those calls where a teacher calls and the next day the kid brings in 10 assignments and gives them over because the parent was like, I'll take care of that, no problem. Okay. And not only did the parent help us out, but it helped the teacher too to go, wow, man, I can really count on some people. I got some help. We need to encourage that more. I don't know why it dies off at the elementary level where, you know, it's that constant communication, and by the time they get to high school, we just stop making those phone calls. And I think part of that's okay because we want the student to become their own person. But at the same time, I know as a parent of a high school student, I want that phone call. Let me know if my kid's struggling. So we're going to go with it. Success Center and coaches I already kind of mentioned. Again, in the cafeteria, it also allows us to create a math and ELA lab. So every single period of the day, if a student is struggling with math or with English, they have a special place they can go and meet with a math or English teacher. We've never had that opportunity. So we've got kids that, and math is one of those especially, they struggle. They hear it once in the class, they may not get it. This is a great opportunity for them to go get additional help. All right, and then free tutoring after school. And this is a big one again for the community. Make sure if your son or daughter is struggling, they can always come in after school in the library to get free help. And we're going to be helping kids on Saturdays and during their lunchtime as well. So we're, again, just trying to overwhelm them with help. All right, we're working on teachers recording more missing assignments than zeros. The main reason is, if you think about this, and I was reading this summer in a book, it said, you know, if your child didn't clean their room and you were upset with them and you told them to clean the room over and over again, they didn't clean the room, would you settle that by saying, you know what, it's too late, you can't clean your room anymore? You don't get that opportunity. No, absolutely not. You wouldn't stand for that. You would say, you are going to clean your room, and if I have to stand here and hold your hand as we clean it together, that's what we're going to do. Well, it's the same kind of concept that we can't just mark down zeros. Now, don't get me wrong. There are certain circumstances where a deadline is a deadline, and we need to build that into the kids' responsibility. But at the same time, we want the work done because we want the learning to take place. If we're focused on the learning, and that's what really matters, we're going to be willing to go through that process of making sure they get the assignments done. Same thing with a debt collector. They don't stop and say, well, you missed the deadline. Sorry, you don't get to pay us back. Yeah, right. So we need to get them ready for real life as well. Overwhelming support, I've already mentioned that. Positive communication. Fifth period, also we have started a new student advisory, which is just where the teachers are taking 15 minutes in fifth period, which is an extra 15 minutes long anyway, to really get to know the kids, check on grades, and it's not just at this point dealing with kids that are struggling, because I know I've been mentioning a lot of how we're working with the kids that are struggling. This is also about how are you connecting with kids? Do you know their social emotional? So if we got kids that are really struggling, are we getting them down to the guidance counselors? Or can we find those things before they become issues for the kid, for the family, whatever that might be? So this is bigger than just looking at their academics. This is hopefully really trying to find a select group of kids that will not find. You're assigned to them fifth period, but they become yours. And you become responsible for really learning about those kids. All right, raising expectations. It used to be we'd say, hey, what are your grades on progress book? If the kid didn't know, you'd just kind of get frustrated and move along. We're not doing that anymore. Again, if we have to take them over and sit them down and say, here's how you access progress book. Let me see you do it. Okay. And the next day you say, how's your grades? And they say, I don't know. You bring them right back down and we sit back down and you get the progress book. They will finally get to the point where they realize I might as well just do it. I might as well go ahead and look this up. I might as well, again, hopefully you're hearing a similar theme is we're gonna fight apathy. We're gonna fight it hard, but and I think this is on the next slide. Well, maybe not. It's probably on the last one. Yeah, here we go. The enemy is not the student, and that's the key. We're not going to be upset with the student. We're going to be upset about the behavior, but we're going to correct that behavior. And that's the whole thing. If you care about that kid, you love that kid, they're going to know when you're upset with them, it's because of what they're doing or not doing, not because of who they are. And that's something that we've got to sell as a staff to our kids. All right, core instruction. We're doing a lot of the same things. Too many of our students require that intervention, so we're going to go ahead and focus on core instruction. We've worked with the BLTs, the TBTs, all the three
Can you tell what those are?
Sorry.
So they...
Teacher-based teams, so this is your social studies department, your English department. Each department is considered a team of teachers, so that's your teacher-based team. Your building leadership team, which is comprised of one person from each of those departments, your department heads. They then make up the building leadership team that helps me lead the building. And then the DLT, which is a district leadership team. So that's the group that comes together from the elementary, middle school, and high school and helps to make decisions. So they all came together to establish the core instructional practices that Jody brought up at the very beginning of this. PD Plus was mentioned. Ms. Penzarski just explained what that is. And for the high school, we're really focusing on standards and assessment, making sure that what we are testing is what the standards are calling for kids to learn. That's the basis. If we don't have that, again, as I think Kirk mentioned, you're going to go all over the place. We got to have that in place first. So that's what we're focused on. And then during our common planning time, which is now available to the high school starting last year and moving into this year, we're working through that 5-step process that everybody else is, but it's really centered on utilizing those evidence-based instructional strategies. And I know you keep hearing that same thing, but that's where we're at. All right. I think that should be, yep, that should be it. And then I'll wrap up just by answering, okay, how can you help? Yep. Our teachers are pretty awesome in the fact that they give up their plan period all the time. They give up their lunches all the time. They come in before school. They stay after school. But in some circumstances, we do have Saturdays that we're going to help pay teachers to come in. Luckily, we've got a High School at Work grant that's going to help pay for that. We're going to pay teachers to stay to help with the tutoring. So we've got funds to do that. Last year, we were able to pull that off and not have to ask for any general fund money. I'm just letting you know there's a possibility, depending on how we roll through this, that by springtime, we might have to say, are there any general funds that could be available to help us continue with this? I hope not. Hopefully, I don't have to ask for that, but I also want to be real that that could be an area in which we need help. And then I'll go back to the community side again and say, parents, we want your help. If you're frustrated with your kid or whatever, call us. We'll sit down with them. We're going to work with them. Do what you can to help support us. If we ask you to have them come in on a Saturday, if you can help provide transportation, if you're willing to come in an hour later to pick them up after school because we want them to stay for tutoring, just the more willing you are as a community to work with us, the more we're going to be able to educate your child. That's it. Any other questions? Sorry,
on the tutoring and the Saturday, do you have an idea of the numbers of students that you would be talking about roughly?
Yeah, just because we have done the after school, I can tell you that generally it's somewhere around 8 to 10, depending on who's giving what test that week. Okay. Because kids also that are, not just the kids that are struggling, but the ones that want to do ace that test, they know Miss Baum is one of our better math teachers, and she's in there a lot of times. So they come in and get help from her as well. So it's, yeah, 8 to 10 probably after school. And then Saturday schools is something we started the latter part of last year. Now, to be honest with you, a lot of it got started as, again, a discipline situation. Right. But we started to realize the value of having smaller numbers working with our teachers. And so we were having 4 to 5, something like that on a Saturday, meeting with teachers. So, yep.
Anything else?
The only other thing, just to kind of close out, was I thanked Jody in the beginning, but I know that many of the people sitting at this table have been here for some time, and I'm sure that you can see the changes in these presentations. And the 4 administrators that are leading our district have done an amazing job, and I have had the privilege of watching them grow as leaders. And I hope that you're as excited as I am about the hard work and the dedication and how proud we are of this team of 4, because they are going to accomplish great things. It's evident in their presentation. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, the thing I see, and then I'll comment on, is for the first time in the 8 years that I've been working on this, from pre-K all the way through 12, our curriculum's on the same page. We have never, everything's always been handled as a separate building, and when we had separate elementaries, every elementary was handled differently.
Absolutely.
And we are away from that now, and that's what's gonna propel us forward. And so thank you guys. Hang together, stay together. We'll be patient. We'll get the moms and dads at home to help, kick in on their curriculum with their kids. I think that's the big thing.
And I got your Saturdays budgeted already, just in case.
There you go. We're always working it. So thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Anything else? No? Okay. That moves us on to public participation. I don't think we have any this evening. So we'll move forward to reports of the treasurer. Move to approve the following August 31st, 2017 reports: cash position, check register, receipt ledger, investment report, journal entries. Motion to accept.
Blue.
Second?
Rush.
Discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
All right. Superintendent's reports.
Would it be okay with you if we dismissed
Oh,
our
yeah.
admin team because
They can get out of
have
here.
busy mornings
Hang up.
and late nights?
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Thank you very
Really
much.
appreciate it.
That's a great work.
And really, I think that they pretty much took the stage for my report or anything I would have to share tonight. The only thing, just to remind you, is that we have a Teacher Professional Day on October 9th. So students will not be in session that day. That's Columbus Day. The other thing, there have been some questions about whether or not I get the calamity call. We've had a couple fog days. So if you have any problem with you're not getting the call, or I'm getting the call and my kid no longer goes here, if you make a simple call to your building, the secretaries can take care of it, or just call here to the district office. But when you call, please say, my phone number is this. Because when you call and say, I want to be taken off your list, and then you hang up, we have no means to know what number to take off the list. So if you could just communicate that to us, we'll make that better, because I don't want to call you at 5:30 if I don't have to. And that's all I have.
Okey-doke. Any questions for Jen? All right. Board committee reports. Finance.
Yes, we met and had a fairly brief discussion, but we talked a little bit about the bus building project and some of the hurdles we have to overcome there, but it's moving forward. I think we have our contract together, so close.
Yeah.
And we're also going to check on possibly the possibility of staying in our existing garage for a little longer if the new owner would work with us there. We got the shared service contracts, which are in the agenda here tonight.
Agenda, yeah.
I guess the cafeteria was being audited. Is that, we talked about that, and so that process.
As part of our annual audit, they have to do a single audit, which covers our federal money because of how much grant money we get. And so last year, they looked at Title I and Title and the special education area. So this year, they had to pick the cafeteria because that's a huge amount of the money that we get of our federal money. So
with the new director and such, I think, but it sounds like everything's going well with her and up to speed, but to help the auditors, they need a certain amount of input to make that work. Otherwise, the budget that's on the agenda tonight as well. Talk briefly about that process. That's about it.
Any questions for finance? Facilities?
We did meet on the 13th, and we had some pretty lengthy discussions, obviously, about the new bus garage and the new athletic complex. But everything is moving forward at this time. We still have some things we have to work out and discuss, but we'll get there. It just takes a little bit of time. We also talked about the fact that we were going to purchase a new mower last year, and somehow it got overlooked or didn't get budgeted, whatever, so we need to put that in the budget for next year. They've already got quotes, which I hope they'll still be good by then, but we'll see how that works. And we've been discussing having a sale once we get everything moved and everything is settling down, but we decided we're not going to do anything with that until, we make our move into the new bus garage and things that need to be, we're going to clean house a little bit. We've got a lot of stuff sitting around that we haven't used in a long time, and I think it's time to get rid of it, so.
Yeah, we might as well just wait till we move, and then we can have one sale.
Right.
And move it all at one time.
Exactly.
That's a great idea.
And we went over some quotes we have for some sidewalk repairs. Well, actually, the sidewalk, there's an additional sidewalk at the elementary school on exits 4 and 5 to link them to the front sidewalk. And then they have to do some repairs down at the corner of Silver and Morningside, but that one we're going to put them both on hold until the school year's over because it's really hard for them to get in there and do any work with, when we have people coming at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to pick up their students, it's kind of hard for the contractors to get in there and do any work. So that'll probably happen once school's out.
Okay.
And then they did some repairs on a well at the high school. And we're still waiting on updates on the tank removal. Other than that, that's pretty much all we talked about.
All right. Any questions for facilities? Extracurricular?
We didn't meet, we're planning on meeting here at the end of the month, so.
Okay. Career Center, back to you, Russ.
Nothing's really changed since our last meeting, so we'll just say everything's going good and we're moving forward.
All right. And policy?
Did not meet.
Did not meet.
Neola sent a box. Just
Oh,
giving you a heads
good.
up. So we'll be going through all this.
All right, that'll fill the inbox. Okay, any old business? Having none, we'll move on to new business. Items 10A through, where we at? 10L. These items are personnel items, so we're moving around people, we're approving substitutes, adding people, those kind of things. Motion to accept.
Rush.
Okay, I got Rush to accept and McCullough for a second. Discussion. Got anything to add there, Jen?
This stuff's pretty straightforward.
It's all just people.
10H, that's our dual enrollment, so that's going to be a little tricky position to hire. So we're going to do some heavy recruiting here early on. So we appreciated her giving us notice for that, but that's a big position that's hard to fill. So,
Okay.
Mr. President, I might add 10K. My wife is on that list. It's a volunteer position. It's not paid, so I will be able to vote on that.
Very good. Very good. We appreciate Judy and all she does for us. All right, any other discussion? Motion.
You did one
Oh, I did. Vote, please. Call the vote.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes,
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
we knew what you meant, Dave.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I was just calling the vote. Okay, I'm getting too old for it. It's a problem. I think I have
The
dementia.
rest of us are in
Yeah.
trouble.
All right, 11, authorizations and resolutions. And we're going 11A, B, and D. We need to remove 11C from the list. With the new system that Tracy is working with, that's bringing all of our finances online, we can't do the amended certificate yet. We can't get one to print. So Tracy is working with Woolco or...
Well, I'll probably just pull off what they're doing. They're not pulling the right information. They have one out there in Cognos, but they're not pulling the right information. But I can pull maybe the framework and then do it manually.
So,
We're hoping they fix that down the road here, because everybody's going, they're pulling expenditures, not revenue.
exactly. So that one is all. But otherwise, I'll take a motion.
Watkins.
Second,
Blue.
discussion.
So I hope to have that to you next month.
So it looks like JROTC is going to go out again. That's awesome. We always like that. And any discussion for that? Vote, please.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
All right, and I will entertain a
Hey,
motion to...
Dave, before we adjourn, I see a couple of our future board members are here today, or this evening, so I appreciate you guys coming. And we did talk, that was one thing we did talk in the finance meeting about, a process or something, get you guys up to speed, we'll call it orientation or something, you know. And so I know Jennifer's working on that, and so I appreciate you guys coming, and you'll get to have all this fun, all yourselves there soon.
Right. The orientation will be important to make sure that you invest the time in and know where we're at. We're on a pretty good trajectory. And so as Jennifer and Tracy know, I am fond of saying we have to be able to afford the education for the best education that we can provide. So make sure that whenever we're thinking about making changes to our system and how we're going to do it, that you attach a dollar sign to every change that you make. So you have to know, what is it gonna cost us to make the changes? Ideas might be great, but if we can't afford it, we can't do it. And what has happened to this board in the past is they have gotten sucked down that other road where, and then our district ends up in a financial issue. And if we can stay out of that and continue to move forward down this path that we're going, we're gonna create good educational curriculum for our kids. I think that's, for the first time, I think we're really pushing towards that. And so it'll be up to you guys to mind the store. And that's really what it's about. So I appreciate your service. Let me tell you, because I know what it's like, and you guys are signing up for a job, is what you're doing, and you rarely get paid for this job. So I appreciate it. So thank you for stepping up. Anybody else? No. Oh, the other thing I'll tell you is OSBA, which is Ohio State Board Association, Ohio School Board Association, Ohio School Board Association, and so we're a member of that. They offer in January, and there'll be several places you can go. Usually Findlay, Perrysburg. There's Columbus, places you can go, and it's a 2-day event. Go to that. It will educate you on what it means to be a school board member. Now, they won't educate you, of course, on what our finances are and how school finance really works. They'll just tell you, get in touch with the treasurer, and they'll go through school finance with you, because they just don't have enough time to do it. But it's very instructional on how they let you know the things that you can do and the things that you can't do. These are the only 2 people we hire. We don't hire anybody else in the district. They hire the rest of the district. And so that's important to remember, that where your responsibility is and what your job is. And so these guys report to you, and you direct them. Below that next line, that's for them to do. And if they're not doing the job, then you bring it up with them. You don't have to bring it up with an individual teacher or, and so I don't want to lecture or do any of those kind of things. Those are the things that they go over and they do, and it's very powerful. So I recommend that you do it.
And Linda Dickerson is already making all those arrangements for you. So she'll get you the complete. Linda Dickerson will be someone that you'll become very familiar with. She'll keep you very informed, and she's already working on getting them registered and those packets ready. She was looking up classes today to share.
And she'll send you emails in the middle of the night and early in the morning, but she'll keep you informed.
Yeah, that class is very beneficial.
It is.
Because it, like Dave said, it doesn't get into the nitty-gritty details, but it hits on transportation, how to talk to the media, finances, what's your responsibilities. I mean, it covers a wide variety of things. And that way, if you want to investigate some more on it, you can, but that's really key that you go. It's a Saturday, Sunday deal, but it's well worth it.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah.
So are there any questions you guys have for us? You're come back next month, and the month after that, and the month after that, and then after that, you're required to come.
Well, and I told him this month was the academics to go through their academic packets and our plan and ask questions or form questions, and then next month, we're going to focus on finance. Yeah. So we'll work with Tracy and Dave, and we'll get everything up to speed, because schools run a little different.
A little different. But so, all right. So for that, I will take a motion to go into executive session to discuss the purchase of property. Time in is going to be 8:04. There'll be no further action taken. Motion to accept.
Rush.
Second.
Watkins.
Vote.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Mr. Blue?
Yes.
Mr. Householder?
Yes.
Mr. McCullough?
Yes.
Mr. Rush?
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned.